Hello and welcome back to another episode of Challenger Approaching, where I highlight a performance from the world of MMA this past weekend that I thought was particularly noteworthy and maybe could have gone under the radar because it wasn't one of the biggest fights of the weekend per se. There was some good action this past weekend if you were an MMA fan. The UFC was back at the Apex. It wasn't a stacked card by any means, but it was a very entertaining flyweight main event between Brandon Royval and Tatsuro Taira, who proved why we need more flyweight main events, especially over heavyweights. This is something that I am very passionate about, and Brandon Royval and Tatsuro Taira proved exactly why that should be the case. Rest of the card, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, if we're being honest. But if you are an MMA fan, especially a European MMA fan, then your Saturday night, or I suppose if you're in the US, Saturday morning, should have been spent, or Saturday lunchtime, or whatever the time difference is where you are in the world, should have been spent watching OKTAGON 62. One of the, just in terms of numbers alone, one of the biggest events in the history of MMA. They had like 58 or 59,000 people there inside the Deutsche Bank Park, which is the football stadium for Eintracht Frankfurt. Obviously, yeah, a huge event, their biggest event ever, just like I said, in terms of pure scale. And I mean, it looked incredibly impressive, but of course, there were some noteworthy performances on that card as well. Let me pull up the event over here on Tapology. So, of course, you have the main event was for the King of Germany title. Christian Eklund put on a dominant performance there against Christian Youngworth. The walkouts alone worth the price of admission on that one. Co-main event, you had Karim Engizek dethrone the longest reigning champion in OKTAGON, Patrick Kinsell, middleweight title. Yeah, impressive stuff in those top two fights. Two fairly dominant performances, despite Kinsell's attempt to kind of change the momentum late on in that fourth round. You had a beautiful knee knockout from Max Koga. I don't know why I struggled to say his name there. His name's one of the more simpler or simplest names. Head's frazzled already just looking at some of the names on this card. Although, considering we normally cover a lot of one championship, it's not that bad. Max Koga put on a great performance against Anton Rakic. That knee that he landed in the second round to get the finish is absolutely beautiful. Some other good stuff here on that main card. But the prelims is where we are going to be heading for this episode, because you had first of all, a big title change. Mallory Martin causing the upset over Katharina Delista on enemy territory, right? That was super impressive, and could have easily been the point of this series. I guess I've kind of shot myself in the foot by calling it Challenger Approaching. I can't call it new champion crowned. Otherwise, Mallory Martin would probably be the performance here to talk about. She won performance of the night, and yeah, I didn't see that one coming. Machamid, I think that's how you say his name, Machaev versus James Hendon, a high-level fight there, and a good win for Machaev, who looks to be a real talent. Interesting to see where he goes. But it is the next fight where we are going to spend the majority of this episode, as Ireland's Will Fleury stopped Pavel Langer in the first round, just over 90 seconds to be precise. This fight was kind of billed as a number one contenders fight for the light heavyweight title. I did speak to Will ahead of this fight over on an interview with Violent Money TV. It was the first time I've spoken to Will in a little bit of time. This is his second win in OKTAGON as well. He got a debut win earlier this year, I believe. Was that at the Birmingham card? Yes, I believe that. On 56, yes, in Birmingham, England. Will has actually been training for this fight in Birmingham, only a little bit, I believe, but at Team Renegade, of course, the home of former welterweight champion in the UFC, Leon Edwards, but of course also the home of Fabian Edwards, who returns this weekend to rematch Johnny Eberlin for the Bellator middleweight title, and he's been training with some light heavyweights, and Will Fleury was one of them. And Will's striking has always been the best attribute of his game. I'll pull his record back up there so you can have a look at that one more time. His striking has always been his best attribute, but it looked more devastating than ever against Pavel Langer, who, again, if you watch the interview that I did with Will, we kind of spoke about how Pavel is maybe deceptively hard to beat. He doesn't look too impressive in a lot of his fights, and yet opponents that should realistically beat him based on, the eye test aren't able to get it done, or at least have a hard time doing it. And that is something that I spoke about fairly extensively with Will. We compared him to somebody like Dricus du Plessis, who during his UFC rise, people were like, this guy's not that good. His technique isn't that good. And yet he's so hard to beat because of his will, his ability to come back in fights, his cardio, all of these things. And that was something that Will was very prepared for, and it did not end up playing into this fight whatsoever. He landed a huge shot and then some beautiful shot selection to put him down. And when I say put him down, we are talking face first, face plant, head hits the floor, a devastating knockout that definitely, seemed to get some buzz on social media. And the interesting thing, it's hard to, I suppose, call it challenger approaching when he is, in a number one contenders fight. But the interesting thing with Will winning this fight the way he did is the current champion in this division is Carlos Vermola. He is probably the biggest name in Octagon in terms of not necessarily global appeal. I would say there may be some other people who have a little bit more global appeal. Obviously, people might remember Vermola from his days in the UFC, but in terms of where Octagon is biggest in Europe, in the Czech Republic, in Slovakia, these kind of places, Carlos Vermola is a huge name. He recently announced his retirement after defeating his longtime rival Attila Vey in their rematch that was absolutely huge. And then he announced that he wouldn't be retiring and that he would be coming back for 2 fights, which would be an upcoming title defense at Octagon 63 next month. We'll talk about that in a second. And then a trilogy fight, presumably with Attila Vey, which Will straight up said that he doesn't want that fight to happen. We kind of compared it a little bit to the Tom Aspinall situation right now in the UFC, where Carlos Vermola is coming to the very end of his career, is going to retire very, very soon. Attila Vey came out of retirement to fight Carlos Vermola the last time several months ago, and, is not the fighter that he once was, as you could see in that rematch with Vermola. So Carlos Vermola, like I said, was supposed to return next month, Octagon 63 in Bratislava, to face off in I believe, a rematch with, I don't know whether it's Pirate or Pirat. I'm going to call him Pirate because it sounds a lot cooler. Will wants to hijack that. Of course, he already told me he had intentions to do that and to make the case for why Vermola shouldn't be fighting Attila Vey in a third fight and should instead be defending the title against him. Now, you get the perfect storm of events, thus the subject of the challenger approaching video, because Pirat is no longer, or Pirate, is no longer going to be fighting Carlos Vermola at Octagon 63 because he is injured, which means Vermola could potentially stay on the card, or I think more likely will probably end up waiting to do this Vey trilogy down the line. However, after the performance that Will Fleury put in, he told me in our interview, the clip that we put out from the interview on social media was that he was going to carry on, if he won that fight, was going to carry on making noise, cutting promos, putting on big performances until it started to look embarrassing for Carlos Vermola that he wasn't fighting him. Will and Carlos actually have some history together. They trained in London together many years ago, where Will did not see eye to eye with him, and there was a little bit of I don't know how much tension, to be precise, when you speak to Will about it. He did kind of go into detail about it on our interview. It's up on the Violent Money TV channel if you want to see what he had to say about Vermola. We spoke about that towards the end of the interview, but that is a fight that he wants to get back. It is a huge fight for him. And of course, you have the other element again to compare to Tom Aspinall. A little bit different because Tom is the interim UFC champion. There is no interim light heavyweight title in Octagon, but it's not the same, right? Winning the title without beating the champion, especially when the champion is a huge star, the likes of a John Jones or Carlos Vermola. So I really hope that Will gets this opportunity. I think that the pieces have fallen exactly where they need to in order for him to get that. Vermola's opponent that was planned for Octagon 63 being injured, Will going out and putting on a statement, but also getting it done in the first 90 seconds. So realistically, he could probably make this turnaround to fight in Bratislava. Do I think it will happen? Probably not. I don't think, again, compared when you look at John Jones and Tom Aspinall, what does John Jones have to gain from fighting a guy like Tom Aspinall? Well, of course, it would be, another notch on his incredible legacy. And I think it would be one of his most impressive wins as well because of where Tom Aspinall is at right now, where John Jones is at. But, if John Jones retires, does it make a whole lot of difference to him that he doesn't fight Tom Aspinall? And I would say probably not. And I would say that you could make the same case for Carlos Vermola, who I don't think is going to be too, you know, disappointed and left feeling like there's a hole in his career if he walks away without fighting Will Fleury. That being said, if you're going to talk about who he should be fighting next, I think this performance absolutely proves that it should be Ireland's Will Fleury. And that is a tribute and a testament to his incredible performance at Octagon 62 in Frankfurt this past weekend, where I think he did exactly what he needed to do. Cut a promo on Carlos Vermola, and I really hope he gets this fight because it would be incredible for his legacy. I should also say, because there might be people who are watching this going, there's an elephant in the room here. Will, of course, did previously fight with the PFL. You can see that here on his record. And he was eventually, he exited the promotion after testing positive for performance enhancing drugs. Me and Will, we didn't really speak about that in the interview too much. We did speak about it off camera. I hope that he's fine with me saying that, but he has already spoken about it very publicly with the likes of Sean Sheehan and Severe MMA. You can go check out those interviews because the way that he has spoken about it publicly, I think, addressed the whole situation very well indeed. So I didn't feel the need to cover it here. That information is out there if you want to go seek it out and make an opinion for yourself on his explanation and reasoning for what he did. But like I said, not here to talk about that. Here to talk about the performance. It was a fantastic performance and a fantastic job all around from Mr. Will Fleury. Thank you for checking out this video of Challenger approaching. I appreciate your support on this channel and these videos and all of that good stuff. As always, I am sure I will see you very, very soon. But until then, peace.